Marcus Webb pressed his palm against the cool metal of the shuttle's viewport, watching the massive Cytherian vessel grow larger against the starfield. The ship resembled a flowering crystal, its translucent surfaces catching and refracting the light of 3 distant suns into prismatic rainbows that danced across its hull. Beautiful and utterly alien, like everything about the Cytherians themselves. "Nervous?" asked the shuttle pilot, a grizzled woman named Captain Torres, who'd been ferrying diplomats and specialists between human and alien vessels. For the better part of a decade, Marcus flexed his fingers, feeling the weight of the biosynthesis unit strapped to his back. "Terrified," he admitted. "It's been 3 years since I've practiced any kind of medicine." "What happened?" "I tried to save someone I shouldn't have." Marcus turned away from the viewport, checking his equipment one more time. The biosynthesis unit hummed quietly, its organic components still viable despite the long journey from Earth. "Cost me everything. My license, my reputation, my fiancé." Torres glanced at him in the reflection of her console. "Yet here you are, about to treat an alien princess that nobody else will touch, because I have nothing left to lose." The bitter truth of it settled in his chest like a stone. 3 years ago, Dr. Marcus Webb had been one of Earth's most promising xenobiologists, pioneering new treatments for interspecies medical emergencies. Then came the incident with the Altarian diplomat's son, a child dying of a rare genetic disorder that human medicine couldn't touch. Marcus had used an experimental biosynthesis treatment without proper authorization. The child lived, but the political fallout had been devastating. Now he scraped by doing research for private corporations, analyzing alien tissue samples, and writing reports that other scientists would take credit for. Until yesterday, when the message came through diplomatic channels. The Cytherian princess was dying, and their healers refused to treat her. Would he come? The docking procedure took another 20 minutes, during which Marcus tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The Cytherians were humanity's newest potential allies, a proud and ancient race with technology that could revolutionize human space travel. They were also notoriously private about their royal family, and their healing arts were shrouded in religious taboos that Marcus only partially understood. When the airlock finally opened, Marcus was greeted by a delegation that made his breath catch. 3 Cytherians stood waiting, their tall, graceful forms draped in flowing robes that seemed to be woven from liquid starlight. Their skin held a pale blue luminescence, and their large, dark eyes reflected depths that spoke of intelligence far older than humanity. The center figure stepped forward, and Marcus noticed the intricate silver patterns that traced along her temples markings of high rank. If he remembered his briefings correctly, "I am Liana, first healer to the royal house," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human ears weren't quite designed to process. "You are the human biosynthesist?" "Marcus Webb," he replied, inclining his head in what he hoped was the appropriate gesture of respect. "I came as quickly as I could." Liana's expression was difficult to read, but he caught something that might have been desperation beneath her formal composure. "Follow me. Speak to no one unless addressed directly. Touch nothing without permission." They moved through corridors that seemed grown rather than built, the walls curved and organic, pulsing gently with bioluminescent veins. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and something floral that made Marcus's head feel light. Other Cytherians they passed turned to watch him with mixtures of curiosity and what he could only interpret as fear. "May I ask about the patient's condition?" Marcus ventured as they walked. "The Princess Naya has been unconscious for 6 days," Liana replied without turning. "She was poisoned during the signing of the preliminary treaty with your government. The toxin is unlike anything in our databases. It attacks the neural pathways that control our bioluminescent systems, causing cascade failures throughout her body." Marcus frowned. "Your healers couldn't identify it?" Liana stopped so suddenly that Marcus nearly collided with her. When she turned, Her large eyes held a pain that transcended species. Our healers cannot approach her. I don't understand. Catherian royal blood is considered sacred. To touch a member of the royal family without invitation is punishable by exile or death. The princess has been unconscious for 6 days. She cannot give permission, and our laws forbid us from making physical contact that might save her life. The cruel irony of it hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're letting her die because of protocol? We are bound by 10,000 years of tradition, Liana said, her voice tight with barely contained emotion. You are not. They continued in silence until they reached a chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The room was a perfect sphere, its walls covered in what looked like growing crystal formations that pulsed with soft, rhythmic light. At the center, on a raised dais surrounded by floating monitoring devices, lay a figure that made Marcus's heart skip. Princess Naya was beautiful in a way that defied human aesthetic concepts. Her skin held the same blue luminescence as the other Catherians, but dimmed now to a barely perceptible glow. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with high cheekbones and a graceful neck that was currently marred by dark, spreading veins visible beneath her translucent skin. Her hair, if it could be called that, consisted of fine, crystalline filaments that caught and refracted the room's light into tiny rainbows. It was her stillness that struck Marcus most profoundly. Catherians, he knew, were naturally animated beings, their bioluminescence constantly shifting in response to their emotions and thoughts. The princess lay motionless, her light fading, and Marcus realized he was looking at someone dying by degrees. How long does she have? He asked quietly. Hours, perhaps less. Liana gestured to the monitoring devices. The toxin has spread to her primary neural cluster. If it reaches the bioluminescent core ... she dies. Marcus set down his equipment case and began unpacking the biosynthesis unit. I'll need to understand the poison structure first. Do you have samples? Here. Liana activated one of the floating devices, which projected a 3-dimensional molecular model into the air. Marcus studied it, his trained eye picking out the familiar markers of synthetic compounds designed to target specific biological systems. This isn't random, he said after a moment. Someone engineered this specifically to kill Catherians. The molecular structure is designed to mimic your natural bioluminescent proteins while disrupting their function. Liana's skin flickered with what Marcus had learned to recognize as distress. You believe this was deliberate assassination? I'd bet my life on it. Marcus activated his biosynthesis unit, watching as its organic components began to analyze the toxin data. The question is whether I can create a counteragent in time. The unit hummed to life, its biomechanical components beginning the complex process of synthesizing a treatment. Marcus had spent years perfecting this technology, using engineered organic compounds that could adapt and respond to alien biochemistries in real time. It was the same technology that had saved the Altarian child and destroyed his career. How long will it take? Liana asked. 2 hours for synthesis, maybe more for a toxin this complex. Marcus glanced at the princess's still form. We might not have that long. As if summoned by his words, an alarm began to sound, a low, musical tone that seemed to emerge from the walls themselves. The monitoring devices around Naya flashed in urgent patterns, and Marcus didn't need to understand Catherian technology to know what they were saying. She's dying, Liana whispered. The core systems are failing. Marcus looked at his biosynthesis unit, still hours away from producing a viable treatment, then at the princess, whose light was growing dimmer by the moment. In his mind, he could hear the voices of the medical board that had stripped him of his license. Reckless, unprofessional, dangerous. But he could also hear the sound of the Altarian child's laughter when he'd recovered, the gratitude in his father's eyes, the knowledge that sometimes saving a life meant breaking rules that lesser people hid behind. Marcus Webb reached for his emergency medical kit. "What are you doing?" Liana asked, alarmed. "Something stupid," Marcus replied, pulling out a bioscanner and a universal medical interface. "I'm going to make direct contact with her bioluminescent system and try to slow the toxin spread manually." "That's impossible. Humans don't have the neural interface capacity for—" "No, we don't." Marcus connected the interface to the bioscanner and checked the power levels. "But I've spent 3 years developing adaptive biomechanical systems. If I can create a temporary bridge between my nervous system and hers, ... You could die. She will die." Marcus met Liana's eyes. "I didn't come this far to watch her fade away while my machines do their work." He placed the interface against his temple, feeling the immediate tingle of foreign technology integrating with his neural pathways. The sensation was indescribable, like suddenly being able to taste colors or hear light. Then he reached out and placed his other hand on Princess Naya's forehead. The world exploded into sensation. Marcus found himself swept into an alien consciousness, feeling the ebb and flow of bioluminescent energy that was as essential to Cytherian life as blood was to humans. But something was wrong. Dark tendrils of the toxin were spreading through Naya's system like ink in water, consuming the light as they advanced. Working purely on instinct, Marcus began to fight back. The moment Marcus's hand touched Princess Naya's forehead, reality shattered and reformed around him. He was no longer in the crystal chamber aboard the Cytherian vessel. Instead, he found himself standing in what could only be described as a living aurora. Streams of light in every conceivable color flowed around him like liquid music, pulsing with rhythms that seemed to match his own heartbeat. "Who dares enter the sacred light?" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating through Marcus's bones rather than his ears. He turned, searching for its source, and found himself face to face with Princess Naya, but not the dying figure he'd left on the medical platform. This version of her blazed with life, her bioluminescent skin shifting through patterns of blue and silver that spoke of curiosity mixed with wariness. On Marcus Webb, he thought back, somehow understanding that communication here transcended spoken language. "I'm trying to help you." Naya's expression shifted, surprise flickering across her luminous features. "You are human. Your kind cannot touch the sacred light without—" She paused, studying him with those impossibly deep eyes. "How are you here?" "Biomechanical interface," Marcus explained, though he wasn't entirely sure how it was working himself. "I connected my nervous system to yours through technology. I can feel the poison spreading through your bioluminescent network. If I don't stop it, I'll die." Naya's mental voice carried a weight of acceptance that broke Marcus's heart. "I know. I have been fighting it for 6 days, but it grows stronger while I grow weak." Around them, the aurora of her consciousness flickered, and Marcus could see the poison's effect manifested as creeping shadows that devoured light wherever they touched. The beautiful, flowing patterns of her thoughts were being systematically consumed by an alien darkness. "Show me," Marcus said, extending his hand. "Let me see what we're fighting." Naya hesitated. "The joining of minds is sacred among my people. It is not done lightly, especially between different species, between those not bound by the deep promise." Her luminescence dimmed with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. What you would call marriage, the implications of what she was saying hit Marcus like a physical blow. To save her life, she would have to share the most intimate connection her species knew with a virtual stranger. And an alien one at that. "I understand if you can't," Marcus began, but Naya cut him off. "You risked your life to enter my consciousness," she said, her light brightening with what looked like determination. "You touch me now without fear, though my people believe humans would be burned by our sacred fire. If you are willing to die for me, I can share my thoughts with you." She reached out and took his hand, and Marcus gasped as her memories flooded into his mind. He saw Cytheria as Naya knew it, a world of impossible beauty, where crystalline cities grew from living rock, where oceans of liquid light flowed beneath aurora-painted skies. He felt her childhood, raised in the royal palace with the weight of her people's future on her shoulders. Her training as a diplomat, learning the languages and customs of dozens of species. Her loneliness, surrounded by courtiers and advisors, but having no one who truly understood the isolation of royal responsibility. And then, in more recent memories, he saw the peace negotiations with humanity. The weeks of careful diplomatic dance, the gradual building of trust between two very different species. He felt her excitement at the possibility of true alliance, her hope that her people might finally emerge from their self-imposed isolation. You wanted this treaty, Marcus observed. More than anything. Naya's mental voice carried deep conviction. My people have hidden among the stars for too long, fearing contact with other species. But isolation is death for any civilization. We need allies, trade partners, friends. Someone disagreed with you. The shared mind space around them darkened, and Marcus felt Naya's emotional pain as acutely as if it were his own. Prince Theron of the Crystal Houses. He was ... is my betrothed. The joining was arranged to unite two powerful bloodlines, but Theron believes contact with other species will contaminate our sacred light. Marcus saw him then, through Naya's memories, a tall, imposing Cytherian with skin that held deeper blue tones and crystalline formations that marked him as nobility. Handsome by any standard, but there was something cold in his dark eyes, something that made Marcus's protective instincts flare. He did this to you, Marcus said, and it wasn't a question. I suspected, but could not prove it. The poison was administered during the treaty signing ceremony. Theron offered me a traditional bonding kappa gesture of unity between our houses. I drank it to honor the old customs. Her bioluminescence flickered with pain. Within hours, I was unconscious. The toxin was designed to make it look like human treachery, an assassination attempt to sabotage the alliance. But it wasn't, Marcus said grimly. It was designed by someone who understood Cytherian biology intimately. Someone who knew exactly how to make it untraceable by your healer's methods. Theron has been researching bioluminescent toxins for years, ostensibly to develop better defenses. He had both the knowledge and the access. Naya's mental touch grew stronger, more intimate. But knowing and proving are different things. And now ... now you're dying. And if you do, the alliance dies with you. Worse. If I die under human medical care, Theron will have all the excuse he needs to declare war on your people. He commands significant military support among the traditionalist factions. The cruel elegance of it struck Marcus with sickening clarity. Whether Naya lived or died, Theron won. If she died naturally, the alliance was dead. If she died under human care, there would be war. The only way to save both species was to save her life and prove Theron's treachery, and they were running out of time to do either. There might be a way, Marcus said slowly, but it's dangerous, and it would require complete trust between us. Tell me. I can use my biosynthesis technology to create a counteragent to the poison, but it will take hours. Meanwhile, I can sustain your bioluminescent core by sharing my own neural energy through this connection. Essentially, I become a temporary life support system for your consciousness. Naya was quiet for a long moment, her light patterns shifting through complex configurations that spoke of deep thought. That would require maintaining this mental bridge for hours. The intimacy would be ... profound. You would know all my thoughts, all my memories. And I would know yours. I know. You would see things that no being outside my bloodline has ever witnessed. Sacred memories, private shamas, secret hopes. Her mental voice grew softer. And I would see yours. Your pain, your failures, your dreams. Marcus thought of his ruined career, his broken engagement to Sarah, the bitter years of exile from everything he'd worked for. Not exactly the romantic history he'd choose to share with a princess. But the alternative was watching her die. I'm not exactly prince material, he said with dark humor. Disgraced doctor, social outcast, professional failure. Are you sure you want to see that? Naya's laughter was like wind chimes made of starlight. Marcus Webb, you have risked your life for a stranger, violated the laws of physics to touch my consciousness, and offered to sacrifice your mental privacy to save me. If that is what humans call failure, then I fear I have misunderstood your species entirely. The warmth in her mental voice made Marcus's chest tight with emotion he wasn't prepared for. Is that a yes? That is a yes to saving my life. Whether I survive what I learn about you remains to be seen. But even as she teased, her bioluminescence brightened, and Marcus felt her consciousness reaching for his with trust that humbled him. Then let's begin. Marcus opened his mind completely, feeling the barriers between self and other dissolve. Naya's memories flowed into him, not just the significant moments he'd seen before, but the texture of an entire life. He felt her first steps in the crystal gardens of the palace, her delight at discovering she could make the palace fountains dance with her bioluminescent patterns, the pride in her mother's eyes when she mastered the diplomatic arts, the loneliness of state dinners where she was admired but never truly known. In return, his own memories flowed to her. His childhood on New Terra, the son of colony doctors who taught him that healing was the highest calling. His years of study, driven by an insatiable curiosity about alien biology. The breakthrough that led to his biosynthesis technology, and the terrible pride that made him think he knew better than medical boards and safety protocols. The Altarian child, Naya whispered, experiencing his memory of that crucial day. You saved him. I destroyed my career. You chose a life over a rule. How is that destruction? Because the rule existed for good reasons. Because I was arrogant enough to think I knew better. Because you have been punishing yourself for caring more about healing than politics. Naya's mental touch was gentle but firm. I see your true heart, Marcus Webb. You blame yourself for pride. But the truth is simpler. You cannot bear to watch someone die when you have the power to save them. Marcus felt tears on his physical cheeks, though his consciousness was still merged with hers in the aurora space of her mind. Sarah said, I had a savior complex, that I cared more about being the hero than about the people I was trying to help. Sarah was a fool who could not see past her own fear of scandal. Naya's response was sharp with protective anger that surprised them both. She abandoned you when you needed support most. That is not love, that is convenience. The vehemence of Naya's reaction sent ripples of emotion through their shared consciousness, and Marcus suddenly understood something that made his heart race. Whatever was developing between them went far beyond the clinical necessities of her treatment. Naya. He began, but she cut him off. I know. I feel it too. Her mental voice was soft with wonder and fear. This is not supposed to happen. The deep promise bonds are forged over years of courtship and careful compatibility testing. They do not spring from a single touch, certainly not between species. Maybe that's exactly why it's happening, Marcus suggested. No expectations, no rules, just connection. They existed in that space of pure understanding for timeless moments, sharing not just memories, but the fundamental essence of who they were. Marcus felt Naya's fierce intelligence, her deep love for her people, tempered by frustration with their rigid traditions. Her secret dreams of exploration and discovery, of seeing worlds beyond Githeria's crystal cities. Naya experienced Marcus's passion for healing, his endless fascination with the beauty and complexity of life in all its forms. His loneliness, hidden behind professional competence and self-deprecating humor. His dream of a universe where the barriers between species existed only to be overcome. "We are very different," Naya observed. "We are exactly the same," Marcus countered. "We both want to build bridges instead of walls." Gradually, Marcus became aware of changes in Naya's bioluminescent patterns. The creeping shadows of the poison were being held at bay by the energy he was sharing through their neural link. Not defeated, that would require the counter-agent his machines were still synthesizing, but contained. "It's working," he told her. "Your core systems are stabilizing. How much longer can you maintain this?" Naya asked, and Marcus could feel her concern for him through their connection. "As long as necessary." But even as he said it, Marcus felt the strain on his own neural pathways. Maintaining a bridge between two fundamentally different types of consciousness was like trying to translate between languages that had never been meant to coexist. "You are in pain," Naya said, her mental touch examining the growing stress patterns in his thoughts. "I'm fine. Do not lie to me. I can feel everything you feel." Her concern deepened into something approaching panic. "Marcus, if this process damages your mind—" "It won't," he said with more confidence than he felt. "I've run simulations on interspecies neural interfaces. Theoretical ones, anyway." "Theoretical? This is somewhat uncharted territory. You could die, couldn't you?" Her question carried the weight of terrible understanding. "Or worse, you could survive, but lose parts of your mind to the connection." Marcus couldn't lie to her, not when their thoughts were so intimately joined. "It's possible, but the alternative is watching you die, and I won't do that." "Why?" The question burst from her with desperate intensity. "Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know?" The answer came without thought, rising from a place deeper than logic or reason. "Because in the few minutes I've known your mind, I've felt more connection than I had in years of supposedly normal relationships. Because your light is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced, and I cannot bear the thought of it going out. Because ... Because? Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me more than dying ever could." The confession hung in the aurora space between them, transforming the flowing patterns of light into something new and complex. Naya's response came not in words, but in a surge of emotion that nearly overwhelmed Marcus's consciousness: wonder, joy, fear, and something else that took him a moment to recognize. Love returned. "Impossible, but absolutely real." "This changes everything," Naya whispered. "I know. If we survive this, there will be consequences. My people, your people, they will not understand. Then we'll make them understand? It may not be that simple. The traditions were made by people, and they can be changed by people." Marcus's mental voice carried absolute conviction. "Love doesn't ask permission from bureaucrats." Naya's laughter filled their shared space with silver light. "You sound like a revolutionary." "Maybe I am. Maybe we both are." Their conversation was interrupted by a sensation of movement in the physical world, voices speaking urgently in the crystal chamber where their bodies waited. "Something is happening," Naya said, her attention turning outward. Marcus followed her focus and heard Liana speaking rapidly in Cytherian, her harmonics sharp with alarm. Through the neural interface, he caught fragments of meaningship approaching, weapons charging, demands for the princess. "Theron," Naya said, her mental voice tight with fear. "He comes to finish what the poison started." Queen Seraphina stood in the command chamber of her flagship, watching the approaching vessel through eyes that had seen 40 cycles of interstellar politics. The ship bearing Prince Theron's banner moved with predatory grace, its weapon systems powered, but not yet locked onto targets, a show of force wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. "Your Majesty," First Admiral Corvin approached with the measured steps of someone delivering unwelcome news. Prince Theron requests immediate boarding privileges. He claims concern for Princess Naya's welfare. Seraphine's bioluminescent patterns shifted to configurations that would have sent lesser Catherians fleeing in terror. As queen, she had mastered the art of controlled fury. Her light could speak of wrath without revealing the depth of her rage. "How touching," she said, her harmonic voice carrying undertones that made the bridge crew unconsciously step back. The prince rushes to aid his beloved bride, bringing enough firepower to level a small moon. Such devotion. Through the neural link crown that connected her to the ship's systems, Serafina monitored the medical bay where her daughter lay unconscious, the human healer's hand still pressed to her forehead. The bio-readings were encouraging Naya's core systems had stabilized, though she remained unconscious. More intriguingly, the scanner readings showed unprecedented neural activity between the human and her daughter, mental bridging. Serafina realized with a mixture of fascination and concern. The human has initiated a consciousness link. Either he is more skilled than our intelligence suggested, or her daughter had allowed the connection, which implied trust that bordered on the sacred. "Your Majesty?" Admiral Corvin waited for orders. Serafina considered her options. 40 years of rulership had taught her that the most dangerous moments in politics came when personal feelings intersected with matters of state. Her daughter was dying, or had been, until the human's intervention. Prince Theron, heir to the most powerful military house in the kingdom, was approaching with obvious hostile intent. And somewhere in the delicate dance between these forces lay the future of two species. Grant Prince Theron's request, she decided. But he comes aboard with minimal escort, and he surrenders all weapons at the airlock. Inform him that concern for the princess's health requires ... sterile conditions, and his fleet remains at current distance. Any aggressive movement will be met with appropriate response. Seraphine's patterns shifted to include the deep crimson that marked royal command. Also, send a message to the human diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Cross is to join us immediately. As the admiral departed to carry out her orders, Serafina activated a private communication channel to the medical bay. Liana's image appeared, her usually composed features tight with worry. "Report," the queen commanded. "The human's treatment appears to be working, Your Majesty. The princess's condition has stabilized, though she remains unconscious. However, the bio-readings suggest ... I see the readings, Liana. My daughter has formed a neural bridge with the human." Serafina studied the data streaming across her displays. "In 40 years of rule, I have never seen such neural compatibility between our species and any other. What does this mean?" Liana's bioluminescence flickered with uncertainty. "The implications are unprecedented, Your Majesty. Neural bridging of this depth typically occurs only between bonded pairs, and even then, only after years of careful preparation. For it to happen spontaneously between species ... it suggests profound compatibility," Serafina finished. "Or profound necessity." She paused, considering. "Has the human shown any signs of neural strain?" "Some, but he maintains the connection despite obvious discomfort. He appears determined to sustain her life regardless of personal cost." Interesting. Serafina had read the human's file Dr. Marcus Webb, disgraced but brilliant, with a history of placing patient welfare above professional considerations. The kind of individual who might risk everything for a stranger, particularly if that stranger was her daughter. "Your Majesty." Admiral Corvin's voice came through the communication system. "Prince Theron has boarded. He requests immediate audience. Escort him to the formal receiving chamber." "I will meet him there." Serafina deactivated the communication link and took a moment to center herself. The next few minutes would likely determine the fate of millions. The formal receiving chamber was designed to intimidate crystalline walls that amplified and reflected bioluminescent patterns, creating an environment where every emotional nuance was magnified. When Prince Theron entered, his own patterns were carefully controlled, projecting the cool blue-white of diplomatic concern. "Your Majesty." Theron performed the ritual bow, but his eyes held none of the deference the gesture implied. "I came as soon as I heard of Princess Naya's condition. How does my beloved fare?" Serafina studied him carefully. Theron was undeniably magnificent tall, even by Cytherian standards, with the deep blue skin tones that marked ancient bloodlines and crystalline formations that spoke of genetic perfection. He would have been a suitable match for Naya in every traditional sense, except for the cold calculation she now saw in his two perfect features. "The princess lives," she said simply. Thanks to the intervention of the human healer, Theron's bioluminescence flickered almost imperceptibly, a micro-expression of displeasure quickly suppressed. "A human? Your Majesty, surely our own healers are more suited to—" "Our own healers," Serafina interrupted, "were bound by law from touching the princess without her consent. The human was not. She allowed her patterns to shift slightly, adding undertones of interrogation. Tell me, Prince Theron, what do you know of the poison that nearly claimed my daughter's life?" "Only what the reports indicated, some sort of exotic toxin, possibly of human origin, designed to sabotage the alliance negotiations." "Ah, yes, the alliance." Serafina moved closer, her enhanced stature allowing her to look down at Theron despite his height. "You have been quite vocal in your opposition to closer ties with humanity. I believe in preserving the purity of our culture." "Your Majesty, contact with inferior species can only dilute our sacred light." "Inferior species?" The arrogance of it made Seraphine's patterns flare with barely contained anger. "And yet this inferior human succeeded where our greatest healers failed. How do you account for that, Prince Theron?" Before Theron could answer, the chamber doors opened to admit a figure that made both Cytherians turn in surprise. Ambassador Helena Cross strode into the room, her silver hair catching the crystal reflections, her expression carrying the kind of diplomatic steel that had made her Earth's most effective interstellar negotiator. "Your Majesty," Helena said, offering a respectful nod that acknowledged royal status without submitting to it. "Thank you for including me in this discussion. I believe it concerns both our peoples." "Ambassador Cross," Serafina gestured gracefully, "Prince Theron was just explaining his theories about my daughter's poisoning." Helena's sharp eyes fixed on Theron with predatory focus. "How fascinating. Perhaps the prince can explain why our analysis of the toxin reveals molecular components that exist only in Cytherian biolaboratories?" The chamber fell silent, except for the subtle harmonic resonance of the crystal walls. Theron's bioluminescent patterns went completely neutral, a defensive response that was almost as damning as an outright confession. "You accuse me based on speculation and circumstantial. I accuse you based on evidence," Helena interrupted, producing a data tablet. "The molecular signature of the poison used against Princess Naya matches research conducted in your private laboratories over the past 6 months. Research ostensibly aimed at developing better medical defenses." Serafina felt a cold fury building in her core. "Is this true, Theron?" "Your Majesty, I can explain how you poisoned my daughter?" The Queen's voice carried harmonics that made the crystal walls ring with dangerous resonance. "Explain how you would have let her die to serve your political ambitions." Theron's careful composure finally cracked, his patterns flashing to the deep red of defiance. "She was destroying everything our people stand for. This alliance with humanity, these promises of cultural exchange, it will be the end of Cytherian civilization as we know it. So you attempted murder. I attempted to preserve our species' purity." Theron stepped forward, his own anger finally unleashed. Naya was seduced by alien ideas, alien dreams of unity and cooperation. She would have led our people into genetic and cultural contamination within a generation. And if she had died under human medical care, Then the alliance would have died with her, and the traditionalist factions would have had justification for whatever actions became necessary. Theron's patterns shifted to combinations that spoke of fanatical conviction. Sometimes, Your Majesty, the preservation of civilization requires terrible choices. Serafina looked at this male she had once considered suitable for her daughter and felt a disgust so profound colored her entire light spectrum. You would have started a war between two species to satisfy your xenophobic delusions. I would have saved our people from contamination. You would have doomed them to isolation and eventual extinction. Seraphine's voice carried absolute authority. Prince Theron of the Crystal Houses, by your own confession, you stand guilty of high treason, attempted regicide, and conspiracy to incite interstellar war. Helena stepped forward. If I may, Your Majesty, Earth's position in this matter should be clear. We seek justice, not vengeance. Prince Theron's crimes were against both our peoples. Agreed. Serafina activated her neural link to ship security. Guards, arrest Prince Theron. He will be held pending formal trial for his crimes. As security officers entered the chamber, Theron made one last desperate play. You cannot do this. The Crystal Houses will not accept. The Crystal Houses will accept what their queen commands, Serafina said coldly. And if they choose otherwise, they will discover why our ancestors feared royal wrath. As Theron was led away, still protesting his innocence despite his confession, Helena approached the queen. Your Majesty, there is another matter we should discuss. My daughter's connection to Dr. Webb. You're aware of it? Seraphine's patterns shifted to configurations. Helena was learning to read as rueful amusement. Ambassador, I have been monitoring their neural bridging for the past hour. The depth of their connection is ... unprecedented, and potentially problematic, or potentially revolutionary. The Queen moved to the chamber's viewing portal, looking out at the stars. Tell me, Ambassador, what do you know of Cytherian bonding customs? Very little, I'm afraid. Your people have been understandably private about such matters. Neural bridging is the deepest form of intimacy known to our species. It typically requires years of careful preparation, gradual increasing of mental contact, extensive compatibility testing. Seraphine's patterns grew more complex. My daughter and Dr. Webb achieved in minutes what most bonded pairs take decades to accomplish. What does that mean? It means, Ambassador Cross, that we may be witnessing the first true interspecies bond in galactic history. The implications for both our peoples are ... double quotes. She paused. Staggering. Helena was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what she was hearing. And your feelings about this development? Serafina turned back to her, and Helena was surprised to see patterns that spoke of something like joy mixed with maternal concern. My daughter has been lonely her entire life, Ambassador. Duty-bound, honor-laden, carrying the weight of our people's future on her shoulders. In the past hour, monitoring her neural patterns through the ship's systems, I have seen her more content than she has been since childhood. Even with a human? Especially with this human. The Queen's expression grew serious. Dr. Webb is risking his life to save hers, with no thought of reward or recognition. He has shared his deepest memories, his greatest shamus, his most private dreams. And in return, my daughter has given him access to royal secrets that no outsider has ever witnessed. That level of trust ... is unprecedented. And if they both survive this crisis, if their bond proves stable ... double quotes, Seraphine's patterns shifted to configurations that spoke of momentous decisions. Then we may need to reconsider many of our most fundamental assumptions about interspecies relations. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Liana's image appeared, her excitement barely contained despite her formal composure. Your Majesty, the biosynthesis treatment has been completed. The humans' machines have produced a counteragent to the poison. Dr. Webb is preparing to administer it now. And their neural bridge? Stable, but showing signs of strain on both participants. The human in particular is approaching the limits of what his nervous system can sustain. Serafina felt a spike of genuine concern. If Marcus Webb died maintaining the connection that was keeping her daughter alive, the implications would be catastrophic on multiple levels. We're on our way, she decided. Turning to Helena, she added, Ambassador, I believe it would be appropriate for you to witness what happens next. History may well be made in the next few minutes. As they made their way through the ship's corridors toward the medical bay, Serafina reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. She had ascended to the throne, expecting to rule according to tradition, to preserve the ancient ways that had kept her people strong for millennia. Instead, she found herself contemplating changes that would have been unthinkable even days ago. Her daughter, heir to the Catherian throne, was mentally bonded with an alien healer. The male she had chosen as a suitable consort had proved to be a traitor and would-be murderer. And the future of both species might well depend on whether love could transcend the barriers that politics and prejudice had erected. Love, she mused as they approached the medical bay. Perhaps that is the bridge we have all been searching for. The doors to the medical bay opened, revealing a scene that would indeed reshape history. Marcus Webb knelt beside the medical platform, his hand still pressed to Naya's forehead, his face pale with exhaustion, but his expression one of absolute determination. The biosynthesis unit hummed quietly nearby, its organic components glowing with the soft blue light that indicated successful synthesis. And on the platform, Princess Naya's bioluminescent patterns were beginning to strengthen, the poison's dark shadows finally retreating before the combined force of human technology and the healing power of love. It's working, Marcus whispered, his voice hoarse with strain. She's coming back. As if summoned by his words, Naya's eyes opened, focusing immediately on his face, with an expression of such profound gratitude and affection that everyone in the room felt the sacred weight of what they were witnessing. Marcus, she whispered, her voice carrying harmonics of joy that made the chamber's crystal formations ring with sympathetic resonance. You saved me. We saved each other, he replied, and in those simple words, Queen Serafina heard the echo of a new age beginning.